Boxing Truth here. I wanted to do a little story about Abner Mares, who is gonna be returning in he's gonna be returning in March as part of the undercard to Porter Thurman at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. He'll be fighting Fernando Montiel, a former champion in the lighter weight divisions. He's very past it now, 36 years old. It's pretty much a showcase get-back fight from Abner. He'll be favored to win. Montiel's done nothing in the featherweight division, nor even the super bantamweight division. He's only had success in the lighter weight classes, 118, 112, 115. He's a blown-up flyweight, so Abner he's the younger guy. He's bigger, stronger. He's had more success in the higher weight divisions, especially featherweight and super bantamweight, so he should win this fight. But I wanted to talk about the story that came out on Boxing Scene. It was about a proposed rematch between Abner Mares and Jhonny Gonzalez. Obviously, that rematch has been talked about for a number of times for the past almost 3 years now. According to Boxing Scene, Mares and Jhonny Gonzalez were in negotiations to finally get that rematch done, because the rematch was supposed to happen back in 2014, February of 2014. And anyways, according to Jhonny Gonzalez, he said that Abner Mares didn't want to fight. He said him and his team took a different direction, and going by the choice of opponent in Montiel, it looks like that's what it looks like. Abner Mares and his team, they took a path of least resistance. They fought a chop-worn guy in Montiel who's very faded. He did all right against Selby his last fight, but he's a smaller guy, not much success at featherweight at all, or at 122 pounds. It's a path of least resistance. Jhonny Gonzalez is also faded. He's past his prime, in his mid-30s as well, but he's done things at featherweight. He's actually won world titles in a division at 126 pounds, 122 pounds. He's also he's campaigning at 130 right now, but he's had success at that weight class. And of course, he iced Mares in one round in their fight back in August of 2013. But Jhonny Gonzalez is pretty much stating that Abner Mares don't want that work again, because of what happened in the initial meeting back in August of 2013. And now Mares is going to fight Montiel, and it's just it's just surprising that he didn't take the rematch with Jhonny Gonzalez. I mean, I know he's coming off a loss. It was a tough fight with Leo Santa Cruz. It was a good fight. I mean, action-wise, it wasn't very competitive in my opinion. I thought the 9-3 score that the two judges gave to Santa Cruz, I thought it was about right. I mean, Mares fought very hard. He had a good game plan at the start of it, but he just couldn't maintain it. He just can't maintain that type of pace. He doesn't fight like that, where he throws a lot of punches and tries to out-condition guys. No, he takes his time. He picks his shots. He stays in the pocket. He comes to fight. That's what I like about Mares' style. He's been in exciting fights. He's not a guy that can blow you away. But he fights very hard. He always comes in great shape. He always puts it out. He always gives his best effort. Yeah, I'm a fan of Mares' fighting style, and I liked watching him. He was coming up, and unfortunately, like a lot of fighters, like other cases in boxing, unfortunately Mares, he's been Haymanized. And that's a term that's been thrown out there by some notable writers in boxing concerning some of the Al Heyman clients about, before he's one of those cases where before he signed with Heyman, he was at the top. He was very, very much respected, very regarded as one of the best fighters out there. I mean, when Mares came out of the amateurs, straight from the 2004 Olympics, he signed with Golden Boy. Golden Boy built him from the ground up. He was their first project, and they were very successful with Abner Mares. He was their first homegrown world champion. I mean, it just shows you that Golden Boy had the ability to do that. They were able to use their matchmakers to build and guide his career into building him into a top fighter, a world-class fighter, a 3-division champion. And when he was with Golden Boy, I mean, he was fighting the right type of fights that can got his name out there, got him respected. I mean, he entered that bantamweight tournament on Showtime. He just kept taking a lot of tough fights. He was daring to be great, moving up weight classes, trying to unify titles, or just picking up belts, fighting world-class opposition, top opposition each time out. Jhonny Perez. Then he fights Victor Chinian right after that. Then Joseph Abeko right after that. He had 2 times he fought Abeko back-to-back. Fought top contenders in the division like Eric Morrell at 122 pounds, 118. And then he fought, the icing on the cake was the fight with Moreno. Islam Moreno, he was regarded pound for pound at the time. He was really one of the top fighters out there and the best bantamweight in the world. And they end up fighting back in 2012 at 122 pounds in Mares' division for the WBC title. And Mares was impressive in the fight. Because a lot of people were counting Mares out in that fight. Moreno was looking good, outboxing guys. It looked like a very difficult style to deal with. Mares bull rushed him, used his physical strength, and was able to grind down Moreno and win a decision. And then he wins another world title, knocks out Ponce de Leon in a very good, entertaining fight. And added a 3rd belt to his collection, WBC featherweight title. But then, he fought Jhonny Gonzalez in a tough first defense of his featherweight title. He was still with Golden Boy at the time, and it happens in boxing. He got hit with a tremendous left hook, counter hook from Gonzalez, and Mares just didn't see the punch coming. He got knocked down, and he just couldn't recover in time. He just couldn't get away from Jhonny Gonzalez's left hook, and then he ended up getting stopped in the first round. But that happens in boxing. I mean, it's very hard to judge on a performance from a guy that got starched in 1 round. I mean, he just got caught cold. He wasn't ready for the shot, couldn't recover. I thought the referee stopped the fight too quick. I thought Mares should have given an opportunity to recover. I mean, it was the end of the first round. Maybe given a minute in between rounds, maybe he could have adjusted from getting hit from that hook, but it just wasn't meant to be. And then after that fight, the rematch was negotiated. There was a date in February of 2014, and then everything changed about Mares' career from that point. He pulled out of the fight, claiming that he had a rib injury that forced the cancellation of the rematch in February of 2014. And there was a lot of naysayers about that. A lot of speculation that Mares was bullshitting, that he wasn't that, he faked the rib injury, that he just wasn't confident of going into the rematch with Jhonny Gonzalez. I know a lot of people were counting him out in that rematch. They thought Jhonny would ice him again if they were to fight so quickly, because it wasn't a well-warranted choice for Abner Mares to go straight into the rematch with Jhonny Gonzalez after just getting knocked out in 1 round. But that was the type of character Mares had when he was with Golden Boy. He was about taking the risky fights, the fights that can get him out there, or the fights that people were counting him out in. He was daring to be great. He wanted keep shutting up the doubters and taking fights that maybe people wouldn't advise him to take. That was just the type of character he was showing. But it was a different type of turnaround. I mean, he pulled out of the fight, and then he didn't fight for he took almost a year off in between fights, between the Jhonny Gonzalez fight and then his fight of Jonathan Okendo in July of 2014. And that would end up being his last fight with Golden Boy. And then shortly thereafter, a month after the fight with Okendo, he signed with Al Haymon. And then the rest is history. He was with his manager Frank Espinosa he guided him to 3 world titles, and then he decided to part ways. Got a lot of hate for parting ways with Espinosa, who guided him to 3 world titles. There were stories of that Mares intentionally pulled out of the fight with Gonzalez in the rematch so he could run out his contract with Espinosa so he can sign with Haymon. I'm not sure if that's true. It's just speculation, but it's just what those were the reports that they were saying, that perhaps Mares was just running out his contract with Espinosa and go a different direction. And he ended up signing with Haymon, and he's ever since that he's been Haymonized. His career has changed a lot. He hasn't been taking the type of fights that could really get him back out there on the map and the top of the division. He chose the money over the glory by signing with Haymon, because Haymon, he hasn't been able to build a lot of momentum for his fighters. In fact, it's a complete contrast. A lot of his fighters that signed with him have lost momentum. It's happened so many times. I mean, a lot of cases out there. Abner Mares is one of them. Adonis Stevenson is another. Before they signed with Haymon, they were really regarded as one of the top fighters in the sport, very highly regarded and respected. And now, it's just not the same. I mean, it just hasn't been the same. Mares, instead of fighting top flight opposition, world class guys, he started fighting guys you wouldn't think he would waste his time with, like Jose Ramirez and then Arturo Santos Reyes. I mean, the Mares of 2012, 2013, wouldn't waste his time fighting no-hopers. So as soon as he signed with Haymon, he started fighting no-name guys, got fringe contenders or journeymen. And he lost a lot of momentum going into the fight with Santa Cruz. Now, the plan was for him to fight Santa Cruz, of course, but, Haymon just needs to do a better job by building these big fights up. That was a fight that was eagerly anticipated. People were looking forward to it. But the way Haymon went about it, he did it the wrong way. I mean, he had both Santa Cruz. He's another fighter that's lost momentum since just being strictly with Haymon. He, instead of put him in good building up fights to their eventual showdown, he matched Santa Cruz and Mares with no hopers and construction workers and guys who have full-time jobs outside of boxing. It's just he didn't put him in with better competition, better opposition, put him in fights that can make them look good. It was just a bad setup from Haymon, how he got these two guys to fight, to get them to fight each other, and he just didn't set it up good. He could have built more momentum, because going into that fight there was a lack of buzz between the fight, because both guys hadn't been fighting the top guys out there, and then finally they're gonna fight each other. It left a sour taste to a lot of fans. They really wish that Santa Cruz and Mares had more momentum going into their fight, but they didn't. It was what it was. It ended up being a good fight, but Santa Cruz clearly won the fight. Mares, he tried to walk him down and try to show him that he was a stronger guy, but Santa Cruz is the fresher of the two fighters. Hasn't been as many tough fights. He's the longer, taller guy, throws a lot of punches. probably in better condition, and he was able to get a decision. And now Mares has to rehabilitate himself from that loss. But I would he should have took the fight with Jhonny Gonzalez, the rematch. I mean, that fight's been talked about for some time. There was a lot of proposed dates, it never happened, and now it just looks like he just doesn't want that Jhonny Gonzalez work again. He don't want to. Maybe he's not confident that he can beat Gonzalez in a rematch. And Gonzalez, he's a hot and cold fighter. He hasn't done much since he knocked out Mares. He made a couple of defenses, then lost his belt. He got knocked out by Garrett Russell. I mean, he's a guy that can. You don't know what you're going to get when he shows up to the ring. And now he's a lot older now. He's been in a lot of tough fights. He's been knocked out multiple times. Now he's currently trying to rehabilitate himself in Mexico, taking fights in Mexico. It's a winnable fight for Mares. A very winnable fight. So, disappointing. He went another direction. I would have liked for him to avenge that loss. I mean, Jhonny Gonzalez, he agreed to go back down in featherweight, even though he's been campaigning at 130 his last few fights. He said he has no problem going back to featherweight to fight Mares again, but Mares went another direction. Now it's just looking like he don't want that work against Jhonny Gonzalez. Disappointing. I would have liked to see Mares avenge that loss. But it looks like the plan now with Haymon is for him to fight Garrett Russell, and I don't know if he could win that fight. I'm not high on Garrett Russell. Russell's another fighter that's he's overrated. He hasn't had much momentum being with Haymon. He's been very inactive lately. He only had one fight last year. He did win a world title, but he's done nothing ever since. I guess I'm aware of the injury he had, but he's very, very inactive, and now I'm hearing he's going to fight. I forgot who he's going to fight, but it wasn't an opponent to look very, very much to look forward to. But that looks like the plan for Abner and Garrett Russell to meet later in the year. And I don't know. I mean, if Mares, he went for the money, I get it. He wanted the money, and he got the money. I mean, in terms of the money he made some good paydays, but he hasn't raised his profile. He hasn't raised his profile by signing with Haymon. He's lost a lot of momentum. He's lost some fans, but he's made some money. I mean, he made $500,000 fighting Torres Reyes, and most likely he was probably making the same type of money, or maybe even less, in those tough fights with Darchinian and Yanni Perez and Ponce de Leon. But just Haymon, because of Wilder and Reed, he's got those big pockets. He's able to overpay his fighters, despite the fighters. The market value of the fighters just doesn't add up. How they get paid that type of the cash. But I'm not hating. He made his money. Got over $1 million to fight Santa Cruz in their fight, and that good for him. But the thing is, Haymon just doesn't have Mares' best interests. He's not looking out for him. He's actually trying to get him beat. That's what it is. That's the thing about Haymon. He treats all of his fighters differently. He has his favorites, and he has his B-sides, and he has fighters that he just uses for his own agenda purposes, his own interests. And Mares doesn't have the best interest about Haymon. He's gonna try to get him beat by Garrett Russell now. That's the plan. And Mares, it would have been nice to see if he wasn't with Haymon. Maybe I know Golden Boy would have had a better plan for fights. Perhaps he could have gotten other big fights if he remained with Golden Boy. But it is what it is. He made his choice. He chose the money over glory, and but now he has to rehabilitate himself. And now he comes back in March. He should defeat Fernando Montiel, but I don't know where he goes from there. Heyman has plans for him, but just not the type of plans where I see Mares getting back in the top of his division. Anyways, still a fan of Abner Mares. I liked his attitude. I like that he was all about being in big fights and raising his profile and being respected by his peers and fans. But now signing with Heyman has done more bad than good for his career. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.